Okay there, following on from my previous tutorial which used Registax 5 to show you how to extract individual frames from an AVI file, what I want to do today is show you how to use those individual frames, which these are the ones I've got on the folder on the screen here, to make an animation. Okay, the situation in which we like to be using this is something like a flare event, or maybe an erupting prom, maybe a coronal mass ejection. Could also be a plane transit or ISS transit, or even a bird transit or an insect transit. Okay, there's lots of ways you can use it. You're going to have to bear with me and use your imagination for this, because I've not actually got any AVIs saved at the moment with transits on. So I'm using, as I say, these 26 images that I extracted from my previous AVI file from the tutorial from the other day. Okay, so we've got these images here. First thing we're going to do is bring up Photoshop, and what I want to do to start off with is to create an action to process this animation. What we've got, like I say, we've got 26 different image files like that, and what I want to be able to do is very quickly and very easily apply the same processing to all 26. Okay, save them, then call those new 26 files back in and create an animation. Okay, so here we go. First things first, I am going to open up just one of those images there. It doesn't really matter which one. So where are we? D drive. And here we go, frames. I'm just going to open up the first one, image 0. Okay, so there we go. So this is the basis of the image that we're going to use for this action. So first things first, what I want to do is, as I say, in the actions pane down here, I'm going to create a new action. This is really easy to do, so I want to talk you through this process. Well, certainly the way I do it anyway. Okay, so down here we've got a little button, should flash up the name in a minute. It says create new action. Okay, so there we go, create new action. I'm going to click on that, and this pulls up a window. Okay, so there's a couple of things I'm going to do here. First of all is give it a name. I'm going to call this one Solar Animation, just for the sake of calling it something. It can go into different groups, different sets of actions if you want to create it like that, if you want to organize your actions. That's down here. I've not been that organized. All mine are just all jumbled up. Okay, but not to worry about that. If you really want to with an action, you can assign a function key to it, so from F2 through to F12, and you can also use this in conjunction with the Shift and Control keys on the keyboard, which in effect means you very quickly, just at a click of a key, you can access any 30 plus actions. When it comes to organising actions, you can assign a colour to it. I've been really lazy in the past, as you can see. I've coloured everything white, but we can assign actions. Okay, I'll assign this one red just to do something different. Okay, so there we go. So we've got the record panel here. What the action's going to do is it's going to record every different thing that I do in Photoshop to this image, and then we can use this to play it back over a series of files. So here we go. First things first, don't pay too much attention to the process that I'm using here. This isn't this isn't how to do a disk tutorial or anything like that. If you want to see that, check out my other tutorial. There's a lot more detail there. This really is about just how to use actions and then apply these, and then use the result to make an animation. Okay, so first things first, I've got the image open. I always like to change the mode we're working in here. As you can see here, we're working in 8 bits. 8 bits, we've got 256 levels of grey in there. What I want to do is convert this to 16 bits. That's going to take me up to over 65,000 different levels of grey. Why do we want to do this? Well, in my opinion, working in 16 bits, when we start doing things like stretching levels, for instance, or applying sharpening, the more shades of grey, levels of grey that we've got, the less likely we're going to suffer from imaging artifacts, things like banding or posterization of an image like that. So first things first, I convert it to 16-bit. You can see there, it's recorded that already. It's converted it. Right, so we're running in 16-bit. As I say, I'm going to do this really quick. I'm not too bothered about the exact resulting image from this. I just want to show you how to record an action. So next things next, we might do, for instance, we might sharpen our image. I'm going to apply a Smart Sharpen filter from Photoshop. So filters, sharpen, and Smart Sharpen there. And what you will find, you can kind of see there, these are obviously single frames from an AVI. Okay, the single frames, single files. And what you're going to find is it's a much poorer signal to noise ratio than a final stacked image. If you're using Registack, Avistack, AutoStack, whatever stacking software you are to stack an image, you may be stacking a couple of hundred, several hundred images on the top of each other. The resulting image that comes out has a very, very low noise. It's equivalent to stretching the dynamic range. But when we're looking at this, even in a converted to 16-bit file, you can still see it's quite noisy. So what you may find is you end up having to drop down the percentage value of any sharpening or anything like that. I normally run anywhere between 100 to 300%. Okay, normally on the radius of about 1.5 pixels, using Smart Sharpen at this image scale. I have more accurate tipped. It also goes in blur, more accurate. That just increases the number of iterations that the filter applies. Okay, so I'm going to click OK for that. There we go. You can see it's recorded Smart Sharpen. One of them might do a bit more sharpening using Sharp Mask. Again, I'm running on really low here, 25% at 2 pixels radius. Just going to click OK. There we go. You can see it's recorded our Sharp Mask. Then what we might want to do, for instance, for our animation is add a bit of colour. So I'm going to press Control and L. That brings up the levels box there. And in my presets, this is really easy to do. I've got a solar colour scheme set. It's just my bog standard orange sun, if you like. Got that set. I'm going to click OK. There we go. So let's put colour into it. We may then want to, for instance, I don't know, just put a bit more saturation in this. So I'm going to increase that by 2. There you go. Gives it a bit more of a golden colour to it. Again, this is entirely to taste. Click OK. But you can see there it's recording all this in this actions panel here. So it converted it, Smart Sharpen, Unsharp Mask, levels, and vibrance. What we then need to do is we need to tell Photoshop in our action that we want to save the image, and we also want to close the image down. Now, so what you're going to end up with along the top here is 20 plus tabs open, and I'm fairly certain Photoshop's going to tell me my laptop doesn't have enough memory, enough RAM or whatever, and that it's got an unexpected problem and is going to close, which is really annoying. So next, we're going to save this as, there we go, I'm going to save it as a TIFF. You could probably get away with saving it as a JPEG or whatever, but that's saving it in that same file, frames. It doesn't really matter where you save it. It's fairly easy to organize later on. Okay, so I'm going to click Save. There we go, TIFF options OK, and then finally I'm going to click Close, because I want that to close down. There we go. So last thing to do on this is to stop that action, stop it recording, stop playing, stop recording. So click stop. There we go. That's stopped there. And we've got this one here, as I say, solar animation. There we go. Right. Next step. And let's quickly go back to our folder. You can see we've got the image saved there. I'm going to get rid of that because we've still got the original up there, which is the one we want to work on. So delete that. Don't want to start confusing the actions in a minute. So let's go back into Photoshop. And the next thing we're going to do is I want to apply that action to every single image in that folder, and I want to do that really quickly. Okay, so we're going to go into File, we're going to go into Scripts, and we're going to go in this one here called Image Processor. So click on that. There we go. And here we go, it pulls up a window, the image processor window. So first step, select folder. Where do we want it to get it from? Well, there we go. It's Sun 16th of December, and the frames folder, which is this one back here. Okay, so we've got all those. So click OK, and then it says select location, save processed image. I'm being really lazy. You could save it in a different image. You could in a different folder. You could save it wherever you want. Okay, and we've got different file options here, what we can save it as. We can save it as a JPEG. So for instance, What you may find is with an animation, these can turn quite large quite quickly in terms of GIF files, so we may resize these if we want to. So we could do that. We can also drop the quality, save on file space, things like that. You can save multiple files as well. We could also save as a PSD file if we wanted to go back in afterwards and start messing around. But for today, I'm going to keep it nice and simple. I'm just going to save as a TIFF, okay, in the same location. So last thing on here, we're going to run the action. We're going to run the action solar animation. There we go. So really simple. Click run. What you'll see happens, it's opening up each image in turn. There we go. And if you look down the left hand side down here, you can see it scrolling really quickly through all my through the different stages of this action. So flies through this quite quickly. I'm only running 26 images here, so it's not going to take that long. But if you have a quick look at the folder, there we go. You can see these. It's churning out the images. We're on number 14, 15. There we go. Okay, it's saving them into there. Let's just click back into Photoshop. Okay, so there we go. Let this run through for a second. 23. 24, 25, 26. Okay, it's telling me, it always gives me a script alert. I'll be quite honest, I'm not a Photoshop expert, but don't worry about that. Click OK. Get rid of that. Right, so let's have a look back in our image file now. There we go. We can see we've got a set of our original images. We've also got a set of our processed images. So with you know, they've been converted to 16-bit. Colour applied, sharpening applied, bit of vibrance, all the things in that action. Okay, so we want to take those coloured images there, those nice orange suns, and we want to turn those into an animation. This is where you've got to use your imagination. You've got to imagine we've got a plane transiting across from left to right. There isn't anything there at the minute, but the principle applies. Okay, so how do we do that? Really easy again. Click in the File menu. We're going to go into Scripts again, and then we're going to use this one here, Load Files into Stack. So we click on that. Pulls up this box here. It's saying Load Layers. You can do this a number of ways. If we'd saved it as a folder, you could just select the whole folder and it'll do that. I don't want to do that because obviously I've got black and white and colour images. I'm fairly certain that's going to confuse things. So we click Files. Whoops. I click on Browse, and there we go. We're just going to select our coloured images. So I've selected the first one with the mouse, and I'm just going to hold Shift down now, select the last one, selects the whole bunch there. Click OK. That loads those up into there. Now this is really important. This one here, attempt automatically to align source images. I know that these images have been taken with a PST on a standard photo tripod. It's not been tracked, it's not guiding or anything like that. It's purely static, so there is drift across the frame. If we stacked the animation, these frames as they are now, into an animation, you would see that drift slowly across the frame. But I want to try and keep things nice and steady. I don't want the image jumping around all over the screen. So what I'm going to do here is check this button, automatically align source images. I found Photoshop to be really good at that, so let's click OK. Let's see what happens. Here it goes, and you'll see down the right hand side, down here, it's slowly loading them all up. There we go, number 9, number 7, nearly done there. And we'll take a few more moments. There we go, it's loaded them all up. We'll take a few more moments just to align them. It always tells me it's not responding. I'm sure Photoshop would prefer a bit more RAM, given a choice. There you go. It's working its way through aligning these. I'll just have to give that a moment to do. You may hear my processor whirring away on the laptop here, but all of a sudden it will do things nice and quickly. So, as I say, pretend on this you can see somewhere on the screen over the sun a plane transiting, or it can be a space station, whatever you want. Use your imagination. Okay, so it's aligning these. Obviously, fewer frames, it's going to take less time to align. More frames, it's going to take more time to align, as with anything. So hopefully this is going to do this quite quickly. It did it reasonably quickly when I was having a dry run of making this movie. All of a sudden the little the progress bar there just leaps all the way across. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything to Photoshop while it's doing this. There we go. So it's aligning those, flying through it now, generating it. There we go. Right, so it's done its bit aligning things there. What you can probably see, if we look on this, let's see if we can, we're on large thumbnails, we can't get this any bigger unfortunately. You can see there, just around the edge where it's aligned them, there's a bit where it's transparent, where the background is. We can, as we scroll through, let me see if we scroll. No, you can see around there. If I tried to align these as it is, what you would see is there's a bit of a border. I want to get rid of that border, so I'm just going to use the crop function on this. What I am going to do is select all the layers to do this though, and a really easy quick way of doing this, I'm just right clicking with the mouse here, and it says select similar layers. There we go. Quite conveniently selects all of them for me because they're all pretty similar. For something like 25 layers, that's not necessarily that important, but if you were doing quite a large animation, maybe 100, several hundred frames, it can save quite a bit of time. So we've selected those, and what I'm going to do now is just crop out just a little bit, just around the edge, just to try and remove. There we go. So somewhere around there, just for the sake of it, and we go image, crop, and you might notice there what that does, it does that on all of those frames in that stack, which is quite handy, which is quite quick. Depending on how much drift and things like that you've got, can take more or less time. Okay, so I'm just going to deselect that, get rid of the dancing ants from around the outside. What we want to do now, we want to load these into the animation window. So if we click on window, here we go, animation, and it automatically loads the first frame. We want all the frames. In the past, I used to load them individually, then discovered if we click on this little drop down here, there we go, there's a function that says make frames from layers, and if you click on that, there we go, hey presto, all those frames now become part of the layer, like so. We can run this through. You're not going to see much change on here, you're probably going to see some bit of dancing around on the screen because of instability of the atmosphere, but you're certainly not going to see something fly across the disk because there's nothing in this animation. Okay, so that's scrolling through. You can see it shimmering away just a little bit. Now, one thing I do know, if there was a plane on this now, what you would find, or a bird, it would be going across backwards of the sun. That's because it automatically does them the wrong way around. Well, not the way I want it to do it, should I say. So let's holding shift down there all the way to the end. I'm just going to click the little dustbin, get rid of that. So how do we turn all these layers around in a stack? I don't want to sit there doing it manually. So there's a really easy way. If we go into the layer tabs there, and we go into arrange, and we click on reverse, there we go. It completely just flips the order of that layer stack like that. So what we can do now, again, going back to our little window, we're going to make frames from layers. There we go, and we can follow it through. You can probably see a little bit of shimmering. As I say, if we had our plane or our ISS or our flare going off for coronal mass ejection, you now see it being animated on the screen. Okay, so I'm happy with the way that animation's come out. The only thing it remains to do then is to save it. I use the save for web and devices function here, like so. Give it a few seconds. It will take a moment or two to load up. There we go. If we click play, you'll see. There we go. It's running through. You can probably see it shimmering away on the screen there. A couple of important things here. I've just found through experience, you obviously got to have GIF selected there if you wanted to save it as a JPEG or any other file format for that matter. For the web, we've got to make sure GIF selected. We want 256 colours. I'm not going to start playing around with this, but if we reduce the number of colours, we're reducing the number of bits the dynamic range of the image, it's going to get very blocky, look very messy quite quickly. Same with no dither. All these things, I found it just works best like that. I'm just going to stop that for a second. But you can see here, final size 983 pixels by 749. Might want to reduce that down a bit, so do it as a standard 800. Ever so slightly off the normal format there. Okay, and if we resize the percentage, you'll see on the screen in a second, it's just working its way through. There you go, it snaps to it. You get an idea of what's going on. I always like to click the preview button down here, and you'll see what happens in a moment. It opens up a web browser page, and hey presto, shows you what the thing's going to look like. So I'm fairly happy with that. It gives you a little tag down here, which tells you what's going on. 10 meg. That's small enough to load up to Flickr, not small enough to load up to my blog site. If I wanted to do it on my blog site, what I would have to do is probably drop this down to more like 640. Let's see what that turns out as. It's also telling us the size here. You can see 6 meg, so I could upload that. Again, if we click preview, you can see the smaller size of it there. So that's working quite nice. To the large one, let's just close this down. So what I want to do now is get that saved. There we go. So I'm just going to save it to the desktop, and I'm just going to call it Solar Animation for the sake of giving it a name again. There we go. Click Save. Let it do its stuff, and there you go. If we have a look on the desktop now, let's just minimize these windows. There's my Solar Animation. If I click on it, it opens it up. There we go. Okay, so there you go. That's my bit of a tutorial how to put together an animation. Not saying it's the best way, not saying it's the right way. As usual, it's the way I do it. Seems to work. Seems to do what I need it to do. Okay. Thanks very much for that.